Okay, so now that my file is rendered, what I've done is I've gone ahead and brought it into After Effects. And I've also brought in all the different multipass renders here, and I'm just going to kind of go over all of them. And not all of them are needed, so I just want you to see what I have and what I'm going to use here. And I also did a little digging around, and I found some reference images of the actual original animation, and I'm just going to drop that in here. There's a couple different looks that they used, and I'm just going to pick this one here because it's different enough from what I did to warrant some color correction. So I'm just going to increase the size a little bit so we can see that. Right there you see that it's more of a purple background here, and this type is a bit of a gold look. And if we look at mine here, the type is a little bit not quite as gold as this, and then the background is obviously very different. So what I'm going to do here is just reduce this down and put it in the corner just as a reference. And one thing you can do with this is it's always a good idea in After Effects to make it into a guide layer right there so that it will not render even though it's in the scene. Alright, so let's look at the movie by itself here. Here's the movie. Okay, and as I said, it's very blue and not purple at all. So I do want to color correct it, but I don't want to color correct the type yet. So what I need to do is I need to isolate my cubes. And so what we have here is we've got Object 1 and Object 2, which are our object buffers. So let's take a look at Object Buffer 1, and that's exactly what I need. It's going to isolate out just the cubes, and then an Object Number 2 is just the text. So we'll start with Object Buffer 1, and I'm going to drag it just above the movie file, and I'm going to turn it into a luminance matte. Okay, so now if I use transparency, you'll see that the only thing that I'm going to affect here is the color of the cubes themselves. And I'm actually going to drag this right down to the very bottom here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute the regular QuickTime movie for the RGB pass. Okay, and then I'm going to drag an adjustment layer in here. Adjustment layer, I'm going to bring it down to the very bottom. And I'm going to add a curves adjustment here, so Effect, Color Correction, Curves. And I'm just going to start tweaking colors. First of all, we want to pump up the red there. And I want to go ahead and pull out whatever green I have because there's really hardly any green in there at all. Now that's a little bit too saturated, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hue saturation pass. And I'm just going to pull some of the saturation out of that, and starting to look kind of like what we need. I could just drag a tint on top of it, and that would sort of flatten it out a little bit, but I don't need it to look exactly like this. If I wanted it to look exactly like this, I'll just show you. I'm going to just grab a tint. So color correction, tint, and I could map the white to this sort of lighter purple, and then we could get pretty close just by doing that. But I went to the bother of setting some interesting lights in there, and I think it looks nicer. It's got a little bit more going on there than this sample. So that's kind of looking like what I want. Now while I'm at it, let's just take a look at a couple of these other passes here. The reflection pass, I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to set it as a hard light, and it's just going to darken everything up. So if I just have it as an additive pass, now I'm getting those nice reflections in there, and I like that. I'm going to leave that where it is. I'm going to drag it down to the bottom here. Actually, I think I'll leave it, I'll leave it right there. The shadow pass, now I didn't have any shadows on my light, so that's not doing me any good. But you see that now it's added color into our text because I did not specify an object buffer for that. So we're getting the reflections here as well. So let's just add our text back in and tweak that color a little bit, and I think we'll be pretty much good to go here. I'm not going to get too far into this here because this has been a pretty long tutorial to begin with. So I'm just going to duplicate this, and I'm going to drag it above my adjustment layer, and I'm going to add my object buffer down here, and now I've separated out my text layer here, and I should be seeing, it looks like we're not getting any of the bevel, but there is some bevel in there. We're getting it. It's just pretty dark there. Let me see if there's anything I can do about that. I could do something here. So I'm going to take material specularity here, and I'm going to use my object buffer again, object buffer 2, to specify just the type here. And then I'm going to tint this because what I really want to do is I just want to make my white areas here red. So I'm going to go ahead and click tint, and I'm going to map the white to sort of a nice red color here. Oops, that was on the object buffer. That was a mistake. Right. Now let me turn everything else back on. Now the problem is that I need to change the mode or the transfer function here. So I'm going to go under here and I'm going to add lighten, and there we go. Now I've got my red extrusion, which is actually nice and flat. I'm actually going to back it up a little bit because it's just a little bit too flat there. Yeah. I'm going to get rid of these. All right, so I'm not going to use my ambient pass, ambient occlusion, diffuse, material color, material luminance. Let me look at the material reflection, see if there's anything I can do with that. Let's just add. All right, that's brightened it up way too much. Let's try a hard light. And it's kind of nice how it's picking up the highlights, but I think it's just going to be too chattery here, so I think I'm going to leave that off as well. And material specular. Yeah, that's just the specular highlights. We don't want that. Now that's nice. See that little pop there in the reflection? And then my specular pass here, which I don't really want or need, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay, and now it's reasonably close. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little ramp in the background here just to give it a little bit more interest. So I'm just going to use a solid. I'm going to make it comp size. It doesn't matter what color it is because I'm going to change the color anyway. I'm going to put it behind, and I'm just going to add a ramp in the background. Generate gradient ramp. And let's just do a quick preview of that. All right, and there you have it. We've got a nice displacement wave coming along. We've got several layers of displacement going on, and then text coming in and landing in the scene. This is all basically done with simple geometry and effectors, and it's a really nice look. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. My name is Jim DiGiovanni with Sky King Creative. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to check out some more of my tutorials here online, or go to my website at skykingcreative.com. Thanks again.